Williams has not spoken out about the incident extensively until now, and in her first on-camera interview, she tells CNN the most detailed accounting of the incident yet. After leaving Trump Tower, Williams said that Epstein berated her for allowing Trump to touch her.
I just had this really sickening feeling. I was rolled in there like a piece of meat for some kind of weird, twisted game.
Soon after the encounter, she severed ties with Epstein.
Why did a former supermodel keep quiet about her encounter with Trump for 3 decades? And what does Jeffrey Epstein's creepy smile have to do with it? Stick around. The receipts will shock you. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great! Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. What kind of man sends a postcard after groping someone? That's the unsettling question we have to ask as we rewind to 1993 Trump Tower and the story shared by former supermodel Stacey Williams. She recounts a moment that has left her angry, disturbed, and with a keepsake she never wanted. According to Williams, she was groped by Donald Trump in the lobby of his own skyscraper. But this wasn't some random occurrence. She describes it as a scene, staged and discomforting, with Jeffrey Epstein lurking nearby, almost like he was part of the setup. Now it's hard not to wonder, how do these pieces fit together?
This context made no sense because the hands were on me and then he and Jeffrey just kept talking and looking at each other and smiling.
And said she was unaware of the kind of predatory behavior that would come to light in later years. She also says she received this undated postcard from Trump, alleging that in 1993, Epstein, who she was briefly dating at the time, brought her into Trump Tower.
Stacey paints an unflattering picture of one of the wealthiest, most powerful men in New York at the time taking advantage of his status. She was, as she described it, a young, naive model trying to survive in a world full of sharks. And on that day, in the famous skyscraper, she says she came face to face with not just one shark, but 2. Trump allegedly approached her while chatting with Epstein, and, in a move that feels eerily movie villain-esque, forcefully grabbed her without consent. What makes her blood curdle now is she felt he wasn't acting alone. She's convinced this was part of a broader, calculated dynamic between the 2 men. Think about it. There she was, a 22-year-old model newly arrived on the New York scene, at the mercy of Trump, the flashy real estate mogul with international fame, and Epstein, the man who wore his shade of sleaze like a designer suit. This wasn't just a power imbalance, it was power weaponized. Williams says that even back then, she could sense the strange synchronicity between the 2, likening them to predators signaling to each other silently. There was nothing casual or coincidental about that day, according to her. The story becomes even more convincing when you examine how others backed her up. A CNN report from the early 2000s referenced women who had shared eerily similar stories about Trump and Epstein's joint interactions with models. Williams' friends at the time also said she'd talked about the incident shortly after it happened, though she was hesitant to go public. And can you blame her? She was one voice against 2 of the most connected men in the city. That's not just intimidating, it's career-ending in a world that thrives on favor and reputation. Now, here's where things take a completely bizarre twist. As if the encounter itself wasn't bad enough, Williams says she received a postcard from Trump shortly after the incident. Yes, a postcard. The front had a generic image of Trump Tower, but on the back, there was no mention of an apology. Instead, she claims, he scrawled something smarmy that she took as a thinly veiled boast, though the exact words remain in question. It wasn't about forgetting the moment. It was about reminding her who he was. The sort of move you'd expect from someone treating his own bad behavior like a souvenir shop trinket. There's almost a sense of performative cruelty in sending it, like twisting the knife and expecting her to smile through it. And the implications of that postcard? Well, it's more than just a message. It's a glimpse into what Trump and Epstein's partnerships may have looked like away from the cameras and the public eye. Think about it. A postcard serves no practical purpose. It doesn't erase anything, it doesn't repair reputations, and it surely doesn't settle lawsuits. No, its only job is to linger and remind. It suggests a man so sure of his influence that he doesn't even bother to hide the memory. He points a neon sign to it instead. But this is just one woman's account, and one surreal, almost absurd memento out of what appears to be a much larger pattern. Stacey Williams's story stands out because of its vivid details, because she vividly recalls the choreography of power, how Epstein's presence made her feel like she was trapped in some sort of bizarre pyramid scheme of exploitation. Yet tragically, her experience that afternoon wouldn't be the last story of its kind to spill out of 1993. What if I told you there was another young woman, also from the same year, who says she came to New York chasing a dream but ended up prey instead? Next, we're heading to the glitzy and deeply problematic world of Trump's pageants, where beauty queens weren't just after crowns, but often had to fend off more unwanted attention than they ever signed up for. Stay with me. This one's about more than tiaras. It's about power, predators, and yet another deeply disturbing addition to Trump's pile of souvenirs. A former Miss Switzerland runner-up once claimed that when Donald Trump organized his 1993 pageant, he had more than crowns on his mind. Beatrice Kerr says what happened at the Donald J. Trump American Dream pageant wasn't just inappropriate, it was terrifying. For years, she kept her experience to herself, but the details come together like something ripped straight from a cheap scandal novel. Trump, Epstein, beauty queens, and an alleged assault that raises a lot of uncomfortable questions about what was really happening behind all the glitz and glamour. Kerr's story begins with the kind of scenario you might expect at a beauty pageant. There was the press event, cameras flashing, and contestants from around the world hoping to make an impression. But Donald Trump wasn't just standing in the background. According to Kerr, he gave her an unusual amount of attention, spending 15 minutes talking only to her. It would have seemed flattering if it hadn't felt, as she put it later, like he was deciding something about me. Then came the invitation. A Trump staffer informed her that Donald wanted to see her privately in his suite. Like something out of a bad movie, the line between business and creepy interest blurred instantly. Kerr says she hesitated, unsure about going, but felt cornered. This was Trump's name on the pageant, his event, and she didn't want to risk being singled out for rejecting the man in charge. What happened next, according to her, was far worse than she imagined. She claims that as soon as she walked into the suite, Trump wasted no time. She describes it vividly. He jumped on her, kissed her all over, grabbed her all over, and attempted to lift her dress while groping her body. It was only when she blurted, "Let's talk first," that the situation even paused. They did sit down briefly, but Kerr found a way to leave soon after. It was an escape, not an exit. On its own, this might be dismissed by some as a shocking, yet isolated, accusation. But the setting, a Trump beauty pageant, brings a thicker layer of unease. These weren't just random events thrown together by chance. Kerr's story also ties Epstein to the scene, just like other accounts have done. Epstein was reportedly a regular figure at these pageants, and Kerr says at this one, he told her directly he was organizing parties at Mar-a-Lago with Trump, offering to cover expenses for women who wanted to attend. To Kerr, this wasn't just a casual invitation. It came off as Epstein playing some sort of middleman in arranging these situations. If that's true, then the dynamic between Epstein and Trump once again looks less like coincidence and more like a carefully oiled machine. Adding weight to Kerr's claims is the solid trail of receipts she's kept. She still has her flight tickets from 1993 and the invitation to Trump's pageant, each one pinning her to the place and time of the events she describes. Facts like these, along with evidence from her longtime friend Pascal Clive, a member of Swiss media who says Kerr told him about the incident nearly 20 years ago, make her story harder to wave away as baseless. Clive even noted that Kerr's account hasn't changed all these years, something that adds another layer of credibility. What really makes this story stand out, though, is the bigger context of familiar patterns. Trump's pageants have been tied to questionable behavior before, from women talking about him walking in unannounced while they were getting dressed to allegations of uncomfortable advances. But Kerr's claim takes things a step further. It's not just gross misconduct, it's power wielded like a weapon to take what he wanted. And Epstein's shadow, once again, lurks in the background, present at these events like an extension of Trump's approach. Epstein wasn't just there for idle conversation, he had a role. If you were to make a diagram, you'd see the two men circling the same patterns repeatedly. Kerr's experience suggests that Trump's pageants weren't just platforms to celebrate beauty. They doubled as some kind of hunting ground for exploitation, with Epstein seemingly running his own side operations. The crowns, the gowns, and the glitzy settings might have been just smoke and mirrors to disguise what was really happening behind closed doors. And if Epstein's alleged coordination doesn't disturb you, the fact that these stories keep popping up should. But it doesn't end here. If Kerr's story raises questions about Trump's pageants, the atmosphere at his private parties leaves you with even bigger ones. Epstein wasn't the only famous name lurking in those circles. Even a rap legend reportedly didn't feel comfortable sticking around once he saw what went on behind the scenes. And what kind of parties would drive someone like that to leave? Let's just say they weren't your average champagne-soaked soirees. Trump's story isn't just a series of scandals, it's a pattern, and the threads tie tightly to Jeffrey Epstein's tangled web. Stacey Williams and Beatrix Kerr aren't just names, they're witnesses with receipts. The postcards, the invitations, the eerie coordination. It all screams of two men working a system powered by their wealth and influence. And yet, here's the bigger question. If Donald Trump is still hailed as a role model by some, what does that say about the people standing behind him? The truth is out there, loud and clear. How long until Trump's defenders feel the heat?